Vive la France. I swear this said Vive la France for a few days, and it's a good thing Paradox caught that, because you better believe I was about to give them a hard time about it. Anyway, welcome back to the French metropolis of Montmaquis, where, yeah, a lot of our storefronts have been abandoned. But today we're going to take a look at the new region pack, the first one, the French region pack, and see what it can do for our existing French city in Cities Skylines 2. I'm eager to dive in, but before we do, there are a couple of things we need to address. First, there's the recent security breach involving the traffic mod. This city uses a relatively limited number of mods, and traffic isn't one of them, but this seems like a much bigger problem than Paradox's bad French. You might want to check out Move the Mouse's video on this topic. But in terms of Montmaquis, I want to start by addressing this huge elevated highway cutting through the center of town. When I built it, I think I was stuck in a North American mindset and a CS1 traffic kind of mindset. We really don't need it in CS2, and especially not in our French city. And we're building a fairly upscale kind of neighborhood north of this roundabout, which would never allow a highway like this to tear through the middle of it, so let's just demolish it. Oh, and before I forget, this game still keeps crashing, and one of those crashes reset the map texture replacer, so I better go back and fix that. Now, the Anarchy mod has re-added some of the extended road upgrades tools, so we'll use those to try to get a nice smooth ramp up to the highway here. Especially the constant slope and force ground tools. So this is basically the effect that I was hoping for. I just wish I could flatten the terrain underneath it. But I wasn't satisfied with that and decided I needed to rebuild this entire section of highway coming into town. And here's how it looks now. We'll just rename this back to Autoroute Dauphiné. This custom roundabout that I made is probably now much too big for its purpose, but I don't know, it looks cool. I think we'll keep it. I just wish the game would let me place a crosswalk right here where I need it, connecting this path through the middle of the roundabout to the sidewalk on the other side. I also want to use the extended road tools to try to get a more constant slope on this rail line coming into town. And that's still much too steep to be realistic, but whatever. And here we've got a tornado warning. We'd better watch out because I think tornadoes might actually do something now. And yeah, it looks like one of our farms has already been destroyed. And a couple of others have been damaged. But with no disaster response units, we'll eventually have to tear this down and rebuild it. Another change that needs to be made is in the yet-to-be-renamed district of Cedar Square, where this block between the high school and the college is just begging to be remade into a park. So we'll just get rid of all of these fancy houses and the signature mansion we placed here using Find It. And we'll just finish off our park by adding a grass surface, making sure that Anarchy is activated, of course. And those oak trees were just a little too dominating, so we'll replace them with birch. Making sure that we're placing trees of different ages so that they don't all die at the same time. Alright, it's time to get the new French region pack from Paradox Mods. And the first thing you'll notice upon loading a save is a new signature building, but that's not the only one. Let's take a look. We have a new residential corner building, au coin de la bouteille, that adds well-being. A couple of cool mixed-use buildings. The Folie Bergère commercial building. And look at all this, plus 10 entertainment, plus 5 attractiveness, plus 10 well-being. And a new office signature building, the Maison des Savoirs Numériques. It all looks very nice. The question is, will we be able to find a suitable place for all of them in Montmaquis? Actually, I want to start with the service buildings and see if we can replace some of those in Cedar Square. First up is City Hall. And the French one is definitely very nice. But for a metropolis like Montmaquis, I'm looking for something a little grander. I think we'll keep the current one. Now let's turn to our college. The French one is certainly very interesting and much more compact, but it definitely can't replace what we have here. But we definitely do need a second college. Maybe we can find a spot for it downtown? I think we'll have to come back to this later. Another mod I recently added is the Recolor mod, and I want to see if I can use it to get the existing college to match the colors of the city hall. But no, I can't change the color of the roof. I'll fiddle around a little with the color of the walls manually. The next building I want to take a look at is the French crematorium. And again, it's a very nice building. I could see this working very well in a dense urban environment, but maybe not in this district. We will need a third crematorium eventually, and this would be a very good candidate. Although it does have half the hearses of a regular crematorium, it is half the price. We can use the Recolor mod on the existing crematorium as well. Now for the elementary school. The French one is a much more reasonable size, although it somehow holds the same number of students as the regular elementary school. And it's a little more expensive. But I could see this working really well in the Old Town district of Notre Dame. In fact, I think I'll just go ahead and replace the 4 existing elementary schools there right away. And the people are not happy about that. But they will be happy about this new one. It's a much better fit. Let's go ahead and add the courtyard sunrooms upgrade right away. But its playground is a little small. If you look for the playground from the regular elementary school using Find It, you'll notice that it's a perfect fit. Now we can fill the rest of this space with new residential buildings. And the French pack adds some much needed residential corner buildings that have instantly become some of my favorite pieces in the game. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, images of the new French assets hadn't yet been added to the asset icon library, which made my job a little bit harder. There was a lot of trial and error in finding the right building for the right spot. I'll then use Move It to make everything look nice and clean, although I'm sticking with my policy of only placing level 1 buildings, so I don't know how everything will look when it levels up. For now, I think that looks pretty good. Then we'll just sprinkle in a mix of alder, spruce, oak, and birch. Of all ages, of course. And then I'll realize that simply bulldozing a couple of sub-elements from the new French elementary school will make it connect pretty much seamlessly to the playground that I plopped in. So I'll use this trick again for at least 2 of the other 3 elementary schools in the Notre-Dame-des-Martyrs district. And here's what the district looks like now with the new French elementary schools. I think that's a big improvement. What about the French high school? Let's compare it to the original high school. $300,000 and $27,500 per month for a student capacity of 2,500, while the original high school and the city high school both have a student capacity of only 800. Once again, it looks great and it'll definitely be very useful in the future, but it can't really replace what we have here. And we don't need any more high schools right now, but we will eventually. Next is the medical clinic, but first I'll use the time and weather anarchy mod to get some better lighting. Now for the French medical center, there's also a French hospital, but comparing it to the regular medical clinic, which is $60,000 for a patient capacity of 100 and 5 ambulances, this one is $60,000 for a patient capacity of 150 and 5 ambulances. Yeah, I think we gotta go for it. So let's get rid of this one. And there is actually enough room for the French hospital, but I don't think that's what we need here. So I'll just plop down this clinic, move it into place, and go ahead and add this upgrade right away. Now, you will see ambulances just spawning in the middle of the street, which looks a little weird. I feel like I need to build them a garage, so I'll use Find It to get the garage extension from the taxi depot. Actually, if I select the taxi depot, I can make the garage extension a functioning one, using Anarchy, of course, to place it a little further away. Then I'll recolor the garage to match the medical center. The new French buildings generally aren't recolorable, for the most part. Then I'll use better Bulldozer to get rid of the taxi signage. Just remember to choose building sub-elements. And I'm not too crazy about all these taxis, driving out from one garage door and then back into another. I think I'll switch this out for a non-functioning garage. And I think this medical center needs a parking lot for patients, visitors, and staff. It's kind of starting to look like the old medical clinic, but whatever. I also backed the medical center from the road a little bit so the ambulances don't drive into the front of it. I considered replacing the old hospital with a French hospital, but decided against it. Even though, looking at our healthcare availability, we probably will need a new hospital soon enough. You know I want to get rid of this police station. But should we replace it with a French police station? Or a French police headquarters? I'll use Find It to check out the HQ. And it's about the same size. So I'll unlock it in the development tree. and then end up using the French police station anyway. I'm not about to give the cops any more than they absolutely need. And even if we do pretend that they prevent crime, crime is pretty low in the city anyway. Now I'm gonna cruise around and look for opportunities to use some of these French corner residential buildings. Then move them into position. And fill in any awkward gaps with surfaces. My other new favorites are these French high-density offices. Having these might have completely changed the way I designed my city. Although at first, they didn't even show up under the Offices tab in Find It. The only way I could find them at first was typing office in the search bar. But these are a little too small to retrofit into our downtown. Maybe we could use them to replace these row houses across from the college. No, I don't like how that looks. Let's change it back. Where these buildings really shine is in the Old Town. I'll use them to replace all those mixed-use buildings with abandoned storefronts along Avenue Commerciale. That'll create lots of much-needed jobs right in the heart of the city, near workers' homes. I placed Carré Gastronomique, one of the new signature buildings, right on Chemin de la Résistance. But what I really want to show you is a recent update to the game that makes transit information reflect changed street names. So no more dead naming city streets. And at one point, all of the new French buildings just disappeared. Which was pretty scary, but reloading the game solved the problem. And I could get back to plopping these awesome new high-density corner office buildings. And then moving everything just where I want it. We seem to have exhausted all of our office demand, but low, medium, and high-density residential are all through the roof. By building all those offices, we've brought the unemployment rate down from around 30% to about 24%, which is much better, though still too high. So the rent for this building is $41 per month. And for this one, $41 per month. And for this one that the bear is walking into, $15,980 per month. Bear must be loaded. So office demand is starting to bounce back, which is a good thing, because I don't want to have to build more industrial parks to provide jobs right now. The demand seems to be driven by high-skill labor availability, even though we only have one college and no functioning university. Although, while we're on the topic of education, is it really a good idea to put tennis courts on the roof of a high school? Like, how many of those tennis balls end up in the street below? Another of the new French buildings that I want to place is the water tower, not because we need it, just because it looks cool. Kind of like a chess piece. I don't really know where to put it, so I'll just stick it next to the city hall for now. Okay, back to our French college. We need to find somewhere to put it. Although, like the French high-density office buildings, I don't think it'll work downtown. We need to find a spot in the Notre-Dame-des-Martyrs district. Maybe here, on Boulevard des Martyrs, near the cathedral. That's definitely a very striking color choice. Let's recolor the building next to it to match. And that looks pretty close. At this point, I decided my old town would not look complete without replacing some public squares that I removed a while back. And I discovered that I could make my custom park count as a park by placing an actual park and removing all the sub-elements. Like so. Although this area is a little too big, we might need to add a short street to cut it in half. Something like this. Then some invisible paths to make sure people actually walk through here. And I'll use another new mod, the area bucket, to replace this garishly bright tile with something a little more subdued. Okay, so that was more of a triangle and a square. We'll put an actual square over here. Okay, before we wrap up, we finally have to rename our newest district. And I think I'll go with moitié du ciel, or half the sky. From the Mao quote, "Women hold up half the sky." And if you've been following this series, you may recall that Montmaquis has a proud anti-fascist tradition, a history of resistance by any means necessary against invasion or occupation by foreign aggressors who mass unalive people. So all these streets are being named after women of the French resistance. For example, this Florence Street will be renamed in honor of Bertie Albrecht. And this Florence Street in honor of Suzanne Hiltermann, aka Tutti. I was hoping to finish up the Moitié du Ciel district today, but as you can see, the snows are creeping in and we can't really see what we're doing in the snow. I know we could use time and weather anarchy to get rid of it, but I think that's enough for now. I might just finish this area up off camera. Thanks to Guez, Gruny, Gérenable, and Révaux for their excellent work on the French region pack. And of course, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, you know you can like, subscribe, and drop a comment. As usual, I'll leave you with a few closing cinematic shots. I'm Pylon John. Until next time, Free Palestine.